And now a message from our friends at Fetching Food.
The 1970s and 80s had elbow, gravy train, Purina, Meow Mix, and bell bottoms. You've changed your clothes, now change how you feed your pet. Like bell bottoms, kick the kibble and join us in the 21st century with the healthiest diet for dogs and cats. Feed naturally, feed raw, feed Fetching Food.
"'Twas the night before Christmas" by Craig Lee. 'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care and hopes that St. Nicholas will soon be there. The children were nestled all snug in their bed, while visions of sugar plum danced in their head. And Mama and her cushion, and I and my cat had just settled already for a long winter's nap. When out on a little wolf, "That's a clamor," I exclaimed from my bed to see what's the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open a shutter, and threw open the sash. The moon on the breast, on the new fallen snow, gave the luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes stood a pier, but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeers, with a little old driver, so lively and quick. I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick, more rapid than eagles. His coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted, and called them by names. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall. Now dash away, that's away all. I drive leaves back before the wild hurricanes fly, when they meet with an Oscar, out to the sky, though up to the high, up to the courses they flew, with the sleigh for his toy, and St. Nicholas too. When then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and were turning around down the chimney, St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was just all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes how they twinkled, his dimples how raining, his cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry, his droll little mouth was drawn like a bow, and a beard on his chin as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled in his head like a wax. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a ripe, jelly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laid his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew, like a down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night."
Hello, pups and kittens, and welcome to another holiday edition of the Groomer Next Door Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Green, and joining us this week is Dr. Marci Koski. She's going to talk about Feline Behavior Solutions, and as you all know, I just love talking cats. I love all about them. They are amazing. And as I say that, right here in studio is Spencer Rhodes, who seems to, at all times, be attached to my side lately. He likes to come in here and just hang out. Him and Oliver, they both, do like to cause a lot of havoc and craziness. You may or may not remember the story of Spencer. Spencer was the last of his family. He was, unfortunately, his family were consumed by predators, and we had to bottle feed him. He went up for adoption, was adopted once, and unfortunately, he was returned because the person couldn't keep the cat. And, well, fortunately for us, he has stayed within the family and is a permanent fixture of the podcast and our family. So he's right here in front of me, and I wish he could come over here and say anything. I'm trying to coerce him into meowing, but he's too busy licking himself. So I will move on to our fact of the week. A pack of kittens is called a kindle, while a pack of adult cats is called a clouder. An adult cat can run about 12 miles per hour and can sprint at nearly 30 miles per hour. You know, I'm just thinking you guys could do really well at the Boston Marathon or any other marathon. You ever think about that, Spencer? And of course, silence. They never really do talk. I would love for him to be more like Callie, who talks to me all the time. Maybe I should put Callie on the podcast, Spencer. Ever think that? And you know what? He just puts his head down, doesn't really care. I'm not really that surprised. And by that sound, Dr. Marci Koski is about to enter the podcast studio, so I'm going to stop rambling and welcome Dr. Koski to the podcast.
Oh, hello. Hold on a sec. Dad, we have a guest on the podcast.
All right, this week on the podcast, we are joined by Dr. Marci Koski, and she has a great company called Feline Behavior Solutions. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Always a pleasure to talk cats. One of my favorite topics. I can honestly say they are all so unique, so this will be fun.
Yes, absolutely. I like cats too.
I was a cat person growing up. As I became an adult, I really have fallen in love with dogs, and at the end of the day, I'm just happy to snuggle up to my cats and dogs, and it's a perfect combination, but the uniqueness of a cat. I mean, they're not all the same, and you can put it into a lot more perspective than I can. But before then, let's go into your origin story and talk about you and kind of find out a little bit more about you.
All right. Well, let's see. Where do you want to start?
Wherever you want.
Okay. So, San Francisco, 1974. Yeah, that's where I was born. But I'll skip ahead a little bit. Yeah, you it's interesting. You mentioned being, both a cat person and a dog person. And I grew up with a lot of pets. So I've always had cats in my life. They've always been consistently present. And each one has been very different. So absolutely unique characters. But I, had fish. I had mice. I've had dogs. And I just love animals in general. I love animals, and I knew I wanted to work with them. And in my later education, I focused on biology and ecology, and got some academic degrees. So, bachelor's of science, and then a master's and PhD in Fishery and Wildlife Biology at Colorado State University. And interestingly enough, my graduate degrees were actually with aquatic sciences. So I was studying kokanee, which is a landlocked salmon. So like I said, I love all animals. And then after that, let's see. Oh, okay. So I moved down to Southern California, and I started working for the San Diego Wild Animal Park, which is now the Safari Park or something. But that was the best job I've ever had in my entire life. It was just super fun. I was a guide for the Roar and Snore program. So I got to take the overnight guests on behind the scenes tours of the lion area and the tiger area and the elephants. And I used to give talks to the overnight campers, and it was just a lot of fun because it really combined two things that I love, which was, conservation and animals, and then also teaching. So that was a fantastic job. I loved it. And then I started working with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So the San Diego Wild Animal Park job was kind of an interim job. But then I got a position with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I worked on a ton of different species, so birds and rodents and frogs and some fish and plants and butterflies and all sorts of things, and then moved up to Portland, still with the Fish and Wildlife Service, and I was with the Fish and Wildlife Service for about 10 years, just over 10 years, and then I decided to quit and start my own business, Feline Behavior Solutions. It was a big change, but it was something that I wanted to do because I felt like in my current position, I had kind of gone up the ranks to become a supervisor. And so I was doing things like budgets and performance evaluations and, I don't know, just, reading reports that not a lot of people found useful. So it certainly wasn't helping in the way that I wanted to help. So Feline Behavior Solutions allows me to help people understand their cats a little bit better and keep them out of shelters. I'm back to educating people about animals, and it's been a huge change, but really, really gratifying. So I'm sorry, that was probably a long, rambly origin.
Nope, that was perfect. That is what an origin story should be, is kind of, timelined. But the one thing that I will say I gathered out of everything is I can tell that you relate to cats probably better than anything because they're nocturnal and your favorite job made you nocturnal.
Yes.
So it was just the correlation of the two together. I'm like, I'm starting to see a pattern here.
And going over to the Sumatran tiger exhibit at night, that was my favorite thing to do because it was just it was so dark and you had to take this little dirt path to go down there. And, everybody carries lanterns, and then you take the people into their, we call them their bedrooms, and it was just so cool because sometimes you'd walk past the tiger exhibit and they would be in the outdoor yard area, and you'd just see their eyes flash with the lantern, and it was just so cool. I just love tigers so much, and it was really, really great to be able to be so close to them and see them in that environment. I mean, obviously I would love to see tigers in the wild, but the Wild Animal Park is a conservation organization as well, and they do a ton of conservation work. So,
but again, proof that you relate more to cats than anything. Just saying.
Yes.
This is why this topic's perfect.
Yes, I'm excited about cats.
See, I would think as you're walking through that exhibit at night, in my weird, bizarre mind, it's just, one male tiger saying to the other, honey, we have guest again. It's just, I humanize everything, and I see them, and I'm just like, when you say, oh, we're in their bedroom, it's like, we got guest again. It's just, in my mind, I don't know why, it's just that was just pulsating through. So,
yeah. No, it was really cool.
You kind of come to this point. All right, I'm not out there anymore. I'm kind of more or less behind a desk, and I'm reading.
It was definitely a more situation. There wasn't a more or less. I was definitely behind a desk and a computer screen.
And that kind of takes away your wildlife cat-like behavior. So I can see how Feline Behavior Solutions started, because you were just like, I'm a wild cat. I shouldn't be, locked up in a cage. I see that a lot of times with a lot of indoor-outdoor cats. They're the same way. They're like, I don't want to be inside. Let me out. Again, humans relate to pets more than I think people realize. We are very much like them. And so I'm just thinking of one of the cats that we rescued sounded the same way. I don't want to be inside. Let me out.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
when the whole process came on, you said, you know what, I'm going to do this. Did you get anybody going, are you kidding me? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
Now,
I did.
How was that? And to try to explain to people, look, I'm going to give up a good job and I'm going to do this. I mean, what was that conversation like?
It was really scary. I'll be honest. It was really scary because, working for the federal government, you have benefits, you have salary, you have retirement, healthcare, all those things. And I was getting paid really well. I was like, I'm gonna throw all of that away, and I'm gonna start my little business helping people with their cats. And it's kind of a niche business. Yeah. When you think of animal behavior, you think of maybe dog training or just working with dogs or horses or something. And you really don't hear too much about trying to work with cats in terms of changing their behavior. And I think the reputation of cats for a long time has been, well, if the cat's doing something you don't like, you just kick the cat outside or get another cat or, give it to the Humane Society or whatever. There's always when I talk about training cats, people are always like, oh, so you can actually train a cat because my cat doesn't do anything. I'm like, no, you can train cats. And so when I told people, I got my certification in feline training and behavior and started my business, I had people laugh, I was trying to get business insurance, and I called up a few companies, and they're like, okay, so what's your business? And I go, okay, so I'm it's Feline Behavior Solutions, and I work with cats and their people to resolve behavior issues. And I got people who just absolutely laughed at me. And I was like, okay, you're not getting my business. Bye. And it's not like I take myself too seriously. I hope you can pick up on that.
I definitely do. Yes.
But, I take my business very seriously, and my business is all about keeping cats in homes and out of shelters and saving cats' lives, and improving the human-animal bond so that both humans and cats can live happy lives together. Because if I can do one thing to alleviate any kind of suffering in this world, I will be happy. And for me, that means helping animals and helping people. So
and that's a good bridge.
It's a passion project. Yeah.
Definitely a good bridge. So, all right. Now, we've kind of got an understanding on who you are and what you do. And then it goes into, we'll go into the behavior issues, and we'll kind of go through a couple of them, and I'll go with the behavior issue and maybe a possible solution, because I think a lot of people, especially, first-time cat parents, they run into this. And, oddly enough, I think cat behaviors has become more of a thing that people are looking at. And ever since, the whole time I've been trying to think of his name is Jackson Galaxy or something like that.
Yes, correct.
And I think that he has done a little bit where that's put it out there. Cats are a lot more loved and treated into a different perspective and environment than even a lot of dogs. So, and I think it is something that's not been a trend for the longest of times, unfortunately, considering what has a cat been a domestic pet for 300-400 years, something like that. It's a ridiculous amount of time.
It's actually been longer than that. And the evolution of the cat, when you look at it relative to the dog, I mean, dogs have been quote unquote domesticated for 30 to 40,000 years. And that may even be longer depending on who you talk to. And so they've had time to work with humans in this very communal relationship where humans and dogs relied on each other for protection, for food. They evolved to work together. Whereas with cats, the earliest evidence we have of, some sort of bond between cats and humans is about 10,000 years old. So it's significantly shorter than with dogs. And throughout the last 10,000 years, cats have pretty much stayed consistent in terms of their instincts and their biology. And the relationship that they evolved with humans was very different from dogs. So with cats, they kind of showed up because humans figured out how to store grain, and then along came the rodents, and then the cats were like, hey, I'm going to take advantage of that. Oh, hey, human, what's going on? And so it wasn't like the cats and the humans were really working together. It was just kind of a convenient relationship. And then along the way, humans decided that cats were awesome. So they, started building a relationship, and then, as they started housing cats and, breeding them, the cats became a little bit more amenable to relationships with humans. And then that developed into pet status. But really, even in this country, cats really have been only house pets for, maybe 100 years or so, because before that, and even now, they were working cats. They lived on farms, in barns, to, again, take care of rodents. But, they didn't really live inside. And, cat litter was developed in the 40s or 50s or something like that. So it was hard to keep cats inside because what do you do if they need to go out? But even in the last decade, that's when we've been seeing more cats who are specifically indoor cats. So their lives have really changed in a really short time frame compared to the way we live with and interact with dogs. So that might have been a little bit of a tangent, but I just think the evolution of our relationships is fascinating.
Oh, I totally agree. And you're right. I'm thinking in the last, when I'm saying 400 years, is probably when they really were part of the common house. I mean, obviously, like when you referenced cat litter, I think it was the 40s, and it was, and I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name, but it was in Michigan, and I remember talking about this a while back ago. So I totally remember it and thinking, evolution of cat litter, how that should have been something that's been around forever. But
I know
it's funny when you think about it. I mean, yes, cats have been. I think you can even go back to the pharaohs, and you'll see different things in different texts that will say that they had cats during that time, and they were indoor, house cats. But it's the way people have treated them has definitely evolved in the last couple hundred years. That it just almost to put it another way, they just flipped the coin and said, "All right, we're going to do it completely different." Where dogs, it's still. They've been domesticated with us for a lot less, and even the evolution of dogs, it's not as much as with cats. So it's always interesting to kind of put the two together and think, well, it's the same thing. I mean, a cat and a dog, depending on your lifestyle, I mean, they're both lovable, and yet the evolution has at some point stopped, and then on the other side, it has blossomed and become a great thing. So it's always really interesting to have that kind of mentality to it and think about it.
Yes. The thing I try to keep in the foremost part of my thinking when it comes to cats and walking into a situation where there's a behavior issue happening, cats are essentially small, adorable, carnivorous wild beasts that we have in our homes. And if you look at them like the tiny predators that they are and keep that in mind, it helps you identify what cats are missing in their lives. And that's why some cats, when they go outside, they get what they need as a small, tiny, carnivorous, wild beastie. And other cats, when they're trapped inside all the time and they don't get the environmental enrichment or whatever other needs are not being met, that's when behavior problems crop up. That's not to say that I advocate for cats going outside. It's just that, keeping cats inside is totally fine, totally doable, but you need to keep in mind that your cat is a wild predator at heart, and you need to provide her with things that will scratch that itch.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Very much so. Challenge the mind, challenge everything. And that's what always is really interesting because, again, with different weather, I'm in the Midwest. It's not the nicest weather when you go from Halloween all the way down to pretty much springtime, April, May. So cats really have to be inside during this time, even though, trust me, they're not, and it drives me nuts. But, so that's always a challenge. Now, I'm going to go down these different lists of different things, and we'll kind of knock them off each one and discuss them. And this first one, you know what? I want to say that I have a solution, but you're the expert, and so I'm dying to hear. And I'm going to say it, but litter box.
Oh yeah. What do you got? All right, I want to hear solution.
Well, with mine, with what we have, we foster a lot. Now we've kind of put a stop on it because it's just been overwhelming. But I've noticed it's very hard. And it's really hard when it comes to your personal cats because they tend to get really, really upset and they stress out. So, in my experience, anytime a cat decides, I'm not going to use the litter box, it references to, it's not going to do it maliciously, it's just stressed out and doing it somewhere else. Maybe it doesn't like the smell of the other cat, or something to that effect. So it grosses the cat out, stresses out, and they'll go somewhere else. That's been my example.
Absolutely. Okay. That's great. I mean, all of that is really good. And just to warn you, I can talk about litter box issues for hours.
Yeah. It's funny how that comes.
Okay. Marci, time, limit. Hours. But there are definitely, a few reasons why cats stop using the litter box or have a hard time accepting it in the first place. So when I have a client who contacts me, and about half of my clients have issues with the litter box. And I've found that a lot of times litter box issues are just a symptom of what's going on in the environment. You're absolutely right. They can be caused by stress, and it could be a medical problem. So the first thing I always do is say to my client, hey, you need to go see a vet. Just make sure that we can rule out medical issues, or treat a medical issue that is causing the problem. Because, there are things like blockages, like crystals in the urine that come and go with pH. So they're very painful to pass. And of course, then the cat associates the litter box with pain, and so the cat goes somewhere else. So just want to rule all these things out, medical-wise. And then the second thing we do is we look at the litter box setup itself, because there very well could be something about the litter box setup that the cat does not like. And I'll give you just a couple of examples. So it can be the type of litter that you're using. Don't use perfumed litters. Cats can smell as good as many dogs, sometimes better. So it's like being trapped in an elevator with somebody with way too much cologne on. In the wild, when cats are urinating or defecating, it's one of the most vulnerable positions that they put themselves in, so they need to feel secure. I mentioned that cats are predators, but they're also prey because there are larger predators that will attack and consume cats. So they want to feel safe when they're going to the bathroom. And a great way of accomplishing that is making sure that they have a clear view of the area in which their litter box is. So that's one of the reasons why I don't recommend hoods. Mm-hmm. Hoods also trap in odor, which isn't great. Cats just have this instinctual need to avoid being ambushed. So even if your cat is just a single cat in its home, it still has that instinct of, I could potentially be ambushed at any second here, so I need to see my surroundings. So having your litter box in an area that is a little bit out of the way but still in the cat's core territory is very important. So you definitely don't want to put it in a corner in the basement or something like that. You want to make sure access is available. I've had people who put baby gates up and the, 12-year-old cat with arthritis has to jump over the barrier to get to the litter box, and surprise, the cat has stopped using the litter box. Mm-hmm. And then you also want to make sure that other cats aren't getting in the way of the litter box access. So just a quick story on that. In my old house many years ago, all of our litter boxes were downstairs in the basement. It was finished. We spent a lot of time down there. We watched TV down there. But all of our cats' litter boxes were down there. And there was only one staircase going down to the basement. And one of our cats, Momo, refused to let Abby down into the basement. She was just like, had enough. Abby, you're banned from the basement. And so Abby started pooping right next to my side of the bed at night. And I'm like, what is going on? She hopped up into the sink right in front of me and peed in the sink. I'm like, okay, something's up here. And we figured out that Momo was being a jerk and just protective of her resources. It's fine. And we moved some litter boxes upstairs and the problem resolved itself immediately. So litter box dissatisfaction issues can be resolved pretty quickly. But then, of course, if that doesn't work, then we have to start looking at stressors in the home, what might be causing a cat to urinate outside of the box. Is the cat bored? Does it need enrichment? Does it need play? Is there a relationship in the house that's causing stress? All sorts of things. So that's when you call in a professional to assess the situation.
And that's the funny part here, is that it really is something that you have to dive into, because it's not something that just easy fix. You have to really figure this out. Yeah.
And that's part of what I do. I mean, with my clients, I go into homes or, do a video chat. I work with people all over the country and in Canada. And through video or an in-home visit, I look around the house and identify pinch points. We talk about, hey, where do these behaviors happen? How can we mitigate this? What would happen if you did this instead of that? So it's a lot of looking at a situation from an objective point of view. You know how it really helps to have somebody else look at something fresh. Mm-hmm. So that's part of my job. It's just be kind of a little cat pee detective.
a little PI.
Yeah, exactly. I will walk around with black light in my holster.
Oh yeah, there you go. And there's urine detected here. Yeah, I can just see this. The cat went to the bathroom right there. It almost has that CSI type dum-dum or whatever that show is.
Exactly.
The next topic, now, again, this one, now, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think this one is probably the easiest, but again, something that I've heard people talk about, and this is why a lot of cats end up in shelters, and that is spraying inside the house.
Yeah. Okay. So, there have been, I've had clients where, we work on something and it fixes a problem. I've had a few clients, they just have these mystery cats where nothing I suggest is going to change this situation. And I'm not a veterinarian, so I don't prescribe medicine. But I do recommend in some cases that people talk to their vet if, behavior modification doesn't work. I say you might want to go to your vet and talk about, some sort of anti-anxiety medication for the cat. A really common one is fluoxetine, which is Prozac. Mm-hmm. And that works really well. Of course, like I said, I'm not a veterinarian, so I don't say your cat needs to be on fluoxetine. That's the vet's call. So, but I have seen it really help. It can help open the door to the cat having lower stress, which is often a prime cause for spraying. Spraying and house soil, like litter box dissatisfaction, are two very different issues, even though they both involve urine. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, because cat urine is like the worst substance on the planet. But they're treated somewhat differently. So you have to figure out why the cat is spraying first. So is it territorial stress? Like, is that cat seeing other cats outside of its home? Or maybe cats inside the home are causing territorial stress. That is often a big cause of why cats are spraying. Is your cat neutered? Mm-hmm. That takes care of a big part of it. There's a lot that can potentially cause spraying. So again, it's a little bit of this sleuthing, and then depending on what you find out, you say, okay, I'm going to provide my cat with other ways to mark so they don't have to use urine. Maybe I'm going to install more scratchers so the cat can leave behind scents from its paw pads, or I'm going to install some corner groomers so the cat can rub up against this area that has previously been sprayed but leave their facial pheromones and their own scent that way. Or maybe I'm going to change the use of this area. Instead of an area that is being used as a marking post, I'm going to maybe put some food in this area, or turning into a hunting ground by having play sessions in this area. So there's a lot of ways you can manipulate your cat's core territory to help them feel more secure in that area. Cases where cats are spraying are always really interesting to me. And I am always so happy when the behavior goes away. I mean, it's just, that's where I feel so like accomplished.
I'm going to throw one in there. And this has happened with me, and that's why I love referencing things that I've had experience. That way I'm not just referencing out of, Google.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
One of the longest cat we have, we call her OG or Mama Kitty.
Okay.
But, and this is the weirdest, she would mark, now she's fixed, she has been spayed, and whenever we would bring in a foster, she would go to my side of the bed and pee. And that, to me, and I'm not an expert here, but that was telling any of the other cats, this is my human, this is where he sleeps, don't come up. Because they would never jump on the bed, they would never come over to that area, ever. So it was like her telling them, mine. Is that what you would see out of it? Because we would never have it. We never have it unless there's long-term fosters that come around for longer times.
So she would actually pee on the bed?
Yeah, right on my side of the bed.
Do you know if it was spraying or actual just elimination? Like, it was a larger kind of puddle, or just like a little bit?
It was a large puddle.
Okay, so that's elimination, emptying the bladder, which is a little bit different than spraying. And to me, that indicates it's not so much it may not be, let me just preface this because I don't know anything about your cat to your home, but to me, it sounds like she is trying to make herself feel a little bit better and more confident. So when here's what I mean. When cats urinate on things to leave their scent behind, it's not I'm mad at you because you brought in these new kittens, they just don't think that way. It's not like, a complicated cause and effect or reaction, a premeditated reaction to something. Cats live very much in the moment. So when she pees on your side of the bed contains the strongest, it's the place where it retains the strongest scent of their guardian. Mm-hmm. So your side of the bed smells like you. Out of all the other places in your home, it smells the most like you. And when a cat urinates there, what she's doing is a self-soothing action to try to intermingle her scents with yours and say, okay, I'm good. This relationship is strong. We're good. We're together. We're here. I'm confident. This is okay. They're trying to cement things. They're trying to make themselves feel better about a potentially new situation. Mm-hmm. So that's what I get from that scenario.
And what's weird is that we haven't had a lot of foster cats this year, and it has not happened at all. It hasn't happened in easily a year now, year and a half to that effect. Yeah. But man, when you let's just say you bring in the litter of kittens and the mom, that's when it's the strongest time. She will be right there and she'll do it. And it'll be once or twice and that'll be it. And it's not like she has a UTI or anything.
Right.
She's just doing it to do it. And I'm like, wow, okay. I mean, obviously you put them all together. It's something to do with mine. But I think that's weird.
I think it's more like, oh God, there's more cats in this area, this territory. I might be scared that we're not going to have resources because these other cats are coming into my territory, and it is perhaps going to impact my ability to get to my resources. So I'm a little bit nervous about that, or I'm a little bit nervous about this other guy who is bringing these scents of these kittens into his bed. So I'm going to reinforce my presence by intermingling our scents. I think it's along those lines.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah. 'Cause I always find that thought process is so deep and intricate, and yet, really honestly, that's very basic. The way that a cat thinks, it's basic. They don't overcomplicate. But when you think about it, it's so complicated. So it's like, huh, odd.
Well, it sounds complicated because I have to put words to it. I mean, cats don't really. I mean, like you were talking about anthropomorphism before. Like, we assign human rationale and. We give cats thought bubbles, like as if they were human. Mm-hmm. So when you try to say, I think this is what's going on in the cat's head, I mean, obviously the cat is not thinking those words. It's more of a feeling that is causing the actions, I think.
Well, feelings have such a complication, and to be able to articulate them is so hard. And sometimes you have to overcompensate just to get the idea out there. So that's always fun. Now, here's one that luckily, again, with all the fosters, I don't deal this, but I'm sure it happens a lot, and that is aggression or fear behavior.
Yeah.
Now, go with it, because honestly, I've got nothing to add on this one.
Yeah. So actually, I would say that cats not getting along and cats being aggressive to each other are probably about 75% of my client base. So remember how I said house soiling was 50%? Mm-hmm. So there's like 25% overlap because house soiling can be a result of, cats not getting along with each other. So it is, it is a result of aggression, or it can be. And it's cats not getting along. I have a few different types of that happening. There's cats who were never really properly introduced, and they were just kind of thrown together, and they just don't like each other. I have cats who are just cranky pants and they don't want to be friendly with anybody. I have cats who are afraid of other cats for one reason or another. And what it all comes down to is figuring out the right way to counter condition and desensitize cats to one another. Of course, there are different types of aggression, like hormonally mediated aggression, or there's, different types. But you basically, like if you're talking about two cats that don't like each other, you try to counter condition by building positive associations with each cat. So like, scent swapping can be important for two cats, just getting to know each other. So you swap bedding, but then you also leave some treats in that bedding so that, oh, surprise, this cat smells the scent of the other cat, but there's also treats. So whenever that smell comes along, there's also yummy treats. This cat can't be that bad, right? So counter conditioning is just turning a negative into a positive, creating positive associations, and then desensitization is gradually increasing the exposure of a potential trigger to a point where the cat gets accustomed to that exposure. So when you're introducing two cats, first you start with scent, and then you go to visual encounters, like through a door or gate that's covered with a towel. And then you give the cats access to the same room, but those sessions start short, and then they gradually get longer and longer and longer because cats are becoming desensitized to each other. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense, and in a sense, it kind of validates how we take in our foster cats. We always put them in the washroom, which is, there's a separate room that leads from the kitchen to it, and that's the kitty room or kitty condo, and they'll stay there for roughly a week before anything, and they'll see each other if I open up the door. They can smell each other underneath the door, but they can't physically get to each other until we say it's okay. And that's how that's how we're able, and it's accidental. I'm not going to say that we're brilliant and we did this by reading. It was all kind of an accidental lesson. We were just like, let's put them in there and let's go that direction. And it's always worked. Even with your... Yeah, just luck though. But it's one of those, this works. There's only one cat that I can honestly say outside of our house can't coexist anywhere, and that's a rescue that we had, and his whole family had been taken by predators, and he was, I think, 2 weeks old. We had to bottle feed him for, it seemed like ever. And he can't get along with any cat outside of our house. He has been adopted and returned so many times that he's not up for adoption anymore.
And that's great. I mean, maybe that's just the way it's supposed to be. Like, that cat was, you raised that cat since he was 2 weeks old, and he came into your life for a reason, and he's like, hey, I'm staying.
I think that, you know what? That's him in a nutshell, though. If he goes, he'll go to an adoption event, and he shows awful. He will just stay in the back of a kennel. He's just like, nope, leave me alone. You get him home, he's like, yeah, sucker, did it again. I mean, he does, though. That's the funny part.
Acting.
And word goes to me. I got rid of more people. He's done it, I kid you not, easily 6 events where he's just like, nope. So, well, we figured he'll never do well anywhere else, so.
Right, yeah.
Now, with aggression, I'm going to guess cat-to-cat relationship. Does that kind of fall underneath the same category, or is it something different?
Yeah, so inter-cat aggression, like I said, there's a few different types of inter-cat aggression. So there is, and a lot of these categories can overlap into other things, but it can be fear-based. It could be like territorial aggression. It could be play or predatory aggression. So one cat just wants to play with the other cat, and the other cat is like having none of it. It could be redirected aggression, where a lot of times something happens outside and the cat sees it and is reacting to it, but can't be outside and can't actually involve itself in whatever's happening outside. But then another cat strolls along and then becomes the brunt of, what the cat saw. And then it becomes like the two cats have never met before. I deal with that quite a lot. So it's really helpful to try to figure out why the cats don't like each other in the first place. Because then you can work on, again, identifying how to work in counter conditioning and desensitization. Sometimes you never really understand exactly what the behavior is, and then you have to take kind of a more generic approach, like a reintroduction program, which I find often works. But if you can figure out triggers and ways to either avoid those triggers or mitigate those triggers, and then desensitize and counter condition those triggers, then you're going to be in a better spot with two cats. But I love it when people say, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with my cats. My cats get along together," and I'm like, "Yes, thank you. That's what I want to hear."
It would be helpful. I always like my dog or cat is a perfect little angel, and you find out not so perfect, not such an angel.
Oh man, I've had clients where they will call me about one thing, and I'm thinking, okay, we can deal with this. And either I read in the questionnaire that I send them prior to meeting, or I go into the meeting with them and find out there's this whole other issue that may be causing what they originally called about, or is a result of what they've, we're calling about. So when I look at cat behavior, I look at it very holistically, not in the, woo-woo sense of the word, but holistically in terms of looking at the whole environment and the cat's background and what's happening in their day-to-day lives. So it's not just a matter of, your cat's urinating outside of the litter box. Well, we're going to focus on one thing and hope that this fixes it. It's much more involved in that.
Mm-hmm. I would think there would be it's an unrealistic thought that you could only go with one idea or one way to fix anything. They are complicated, even though they're simplistic, which I know, as we've said before, it almost completely is impossible to be, but that's what makes cats so much fun. They're complicated.
And every single one is just a fascinating creature. I mean,
yes.
And cats are, when you think about it, excellent communicators, because they're able to tell you so much about what they're going through their actions and their body language. It's just like humans really suck at reading the communication, and the cat's like, "Come on, I'm telling you."
Stop putting it into so many words. It's simple. I like you.
I know.
Yeah.
I head up against you. You're now mine.
Right. I mean, what more do I have to say or do? It's right there. You humans overcomplicate everything. Yeah,
they really do.
It's very similar to that. I mean, I look at one of my cats, and he was a kitten right when Spencer, the one I was talking about, they were right around the same age, and I honestly, I think to myself, and this is going to sound so bizarre, maybe it'll sound completely normal to you, but I'm always like, I wonder if you're a real butthead, but I think you're so awesome and so adorable, but I wonder if the other cats are like, why does he like him? He's such a butt. He doesn't do this right, or just, he's so mischievous. You should see he's the one who likes to poop outside the litter box. Kind of those kind of mentalities. I always wonder that when I look at them. I'm like, I wonder which one of you is the sweetest, the genuinely sweetest, and which one here is the but that really, oh my gosh, it crosses my mind daily. I had a weird thought.
It's funny. Well, cats, I'll tell you another little story. So I had a cat named Jesse, and Jesse just passed away earlier this year. He was 19. So
Oh, wow.
We've been together a long time, and he had seen me through several boyfriends and my husband, and Jesse really loved my husband, so that was good. But a boyfriend that I had previously, we lived together, he was not very nice to Jesse. He would always call him, like, what's his name, and just, like, get out of my way, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, one night I woke up and Jesse was peeing right on top of him in bed. And I think, I think it was, Jesse was picking up on this guy's, not so much dislike, but just intense indifference, if that makes sense, towards Jesse. And Jesse was like, oh, what do I do here? So, I'm going to try to intermingle my sense. But, and, that's the logical reason. But in the back of my head, I like to think it was just Jesse looking out for me, saying that he was not the right guy for me.
And very likely, I mean, I love the way he was able to articulate it by just peeing on the guy. I mean, that's great. That is the best.
Yeah, exactly.
That is, nothing has to be said any more than that. That is one great cat.
Yeah. I miss him. He was a great cat.
I guess I like any cat or dog that can defecate on a human and just say, I hate you. I don't know why I love that. I think it's just my childlike personality or immaturity, but that's when I get the happiest, when I hear these stories, because I'm like, you're not that nice, and that cat just told you. In so many words, too.
Right.
That's awesome. I'm going to think about that for the rest of the day, just to let you know. Just laughing about it. Now, the next one, and I'm going to go with this, and this is just an experience, and I'm sure that you're going to say, well, yes, but there's a lot more to it, and that is destructive behavior. I would think that boredom would be the number one problem that you must say, well, what are you doing to stimulate the cat or the cat's mind?
Yeah. If you don't give your cat something to do, they're going to find something to do. And a lot of times, whatever that is not going to be pleasant.
Right.
Not going to approve of that. So that's like, shredding things, getting up on tables and knocking stuff over. I mean, how many YouTube videos are out there just of cats up on ledges knocking stuff off just to see it fall? I mean, yeah, it's a thing. And, they dig up plants. They just do all kinds of stuff. They bite stuff. They shred stuff. They play with different objects that they can get their little murder mitts on. And it's because they're bored. They don't have anything to do. And it all comes back to recognizing that your cat is a tiny, adorable, wild carnivorous predator. And yes, they do sleep a lot, but that does not mean that they should just exist to keep your couch warm. They need stimulation. They need to act like predators. They need to hunt. They need to learn. They need to engage themselves physically and mentally every day to keep themselves from getting bored, because that leads to behavior problems. Boredom leads to stress. Stress leads to behavior problems.
Couldn't say it any better. And you think about it. Here's the easiest way of thinking about this whole process. How do humans deal with boredom?
Right.
So simple.
I know. I mean, humans turn on the TV, or they there are a lot of things that humans do or don't do. But I mean, have you ever been to a zoo that didn't really have great enrichment opportunities for the animals there? So, like, you see elephants pacing. they just pace back and forth, back and forth. It's that repetitive behavior that becomes obsessive, that shows, like understimulated, stressed out behavior. Polar bears just swimming in the exact same lap over and over and over and over again. Zoos have, I hate going to zoos because it's hard for me to see animals, confined. But I also love going to zoos because they really have gotten so much better in terms of giving animals enrichment and really trying to figure out how to bring out their natural behaviors in a way that's going to be beneficial for them. So people are getting more of an experience of not only just seeing an animal that they don't get to see, but also see how that animal acts. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's my little spiel on zoos, and I don't know why I started talking about that.
I don't know. I love it. It's great because honestly, but see, then when I said we're going to have a conversation, that's a conversation. It's not scripted. That's kind of what makes it almost fun.
Yeah.
and I'm the same way. I went to SeaWorld, oh gosh, I would say 8 years ago at this point. I hadn't been since I was really little, younger than my daughter now. And I looked at that place and I was like, ugh. Yeah. This poor fish wants to do better than this. And even down to zoos, I'm trying to think the last time I went to a zoo. I think, God, I don't remember. Oddly enough, my daughter just is coming back from one today. And yet I can't remember the last time I went to a zoo, even though I look at them and I go, a lot of them are here because it's helping them and they needed to be here. But I'm always feeling that guilt, like, oh, you poor thing. Yeah. You're not able to roam around. But then, you think about endangered species, and if we didn't have these different sanctuaries, would they go extinct? And the answer is probably yes. And so it's a need. And then of course, how often are you going to see a tiger walking around in your backyard? And if you do, then you got a problem. But I guess you could say the same thing with the cat and dog, though. If we didn't domesticate them and do what we do, who knows? They may have gone extinct too. Never know.
I don't know. Cats are highly adaptive, and that's why I think that they've been such good survivors. I mean, we have a huge homeless cat problem in this country, and then in other parts of the world, the homeless cat populations are super high.
Yeah.
So I think cats, especially when they live in proximity to humans, where there's always going to be resources available, are pretty good at adapting to various situations. So I don't fear for cats being extinct.
Well, not now.
Domestic cats, yeah.
I mean, imagine if some weird, global change would have happened or something like that, and I'm talking hundreds of years ago, maybe, or even down to some weird, like they always say, we're going to get hit with some massive nuclear bomb that's going to destroy everything. God forbid that does happen. Will cats, will dogs, will humans be able to adapt and be able to thrive? I think they will. I think they'll be good. I think they'll be good. They'll survive better than we will.
That's probably true.
Yeah. Now, the next one is food aggression, which, it's funny. That's a topic that, honestly, you can have for humans, you can have it for dogs, you can have it for cats. Is there a specific way that you're able to work through it with a cat?
So, food aggression, meaning cats just don't stop eating and they don't want other cats around them, or they just will get. I've heard of several different scenarios. I've heard cats will, if any type of food, let's say a human has any type of food, the cat gets aggressive and wants that food. again, this is going to be kind of worked through using counter conditioning and desensitization.
Claire.
So,
Claire Green.
One more time.
Claire Green. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Sorry. Gets a little sometimes busy. Not normal, but it's one of those rarities. Sorry. Keep going.
That's okay. Okay. So, yeah, it's one of those cases where you have to work on counter conditioning and desensitization. So maybe if I've there are some scenarios where. Are you good?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. There are some scenarios where you have to teach the cat that their resource food is not going to be limited, and they don't have to worry about just scarfing it all down right away and, protecting it. So in those type of cases, I try to keep cats eating slow. So you can use food puzzles or slow feeders with those type of cats so that they learn, I can walk away, and because I'm full, because I've been eating slower, and I get fed another, meal. I can come back. There's going to be more. And then in terms of aggression towards humans, if cats are being aggressive towards humans with food, a lot of that type of thing is there are a couple different approaches. You can manage the triggers, and that's, if you're just managing a situation, you're basically, keeping the cat out of the room. But that's not really changing the behavior. It's just avoiding it. Or you could do something like clicker training a cat, where the cat doesn't get anything until he completes a command. And then the cat recognizes that, hey, the cat's not the boss, the human's the boss. And if the cat wants anything, it has to go through the human first. And the only way to do that is to perform a command that the human gives the cat. So clicker training can be a really good way of treating food aggression towards humans.
I have never heard of clicker training for a cat. That is interesting.
Oh my God.
I know. I've done it with my dogs, but never with the cats. I think my cats will look at me and laugh.
It's so much fun. And with cats, they have a pretty short attention span. So clicker training sessions are only going to last a couple minutes.
Huh.
And it's much easier to train a cat who does like food or snacks or treats or something like that. It's much harder to try to clicker train a cat who is just like meh about food, but it can be done.
Huh. Now,
and
I can relate to that, but not with the clicker. Oliver, the one that I always say, he's probably the butthead of the group, but I think he's adorable.
You have a butthead named Oliver. I have a butthead cat named Oliver.
Maybe that's,
oh my God.
That's what it comes down to. All my artwork with cats seem to have Oliver in it. I don't know why he's the star when it comes to my cats, but I know he's got to be a butthead. I don't know why. He has to be. But my wife and daughter have been able to train him, in a sense, kind of like clicker training when it comes to treats. They'll say, Art, stand up on two legs, and he does it. But no clicker. So take away the clicker, and you got exactly what you just said. That's interesting.
Right. And you can use a clicker. The clicker just marks the exact behavior that you want. And it's a consistent sound, and the cat, once you load the clicker, the cat recognizes the sound as, yes, you did that right. Now here comes your treat. That's a lot to put in a little sound. So a lot of cats are actually afraid of the clicker sound, at least initially. So you can either put it fully in your hand so it muffles the sound, or you can put the clicker in a sock so it's muffled a little bit, or you can put it behind your back. My cat, Abby, never outgrew being afraid of the clicker. So with her, instead of the click, I just say, good girl. And it's always the same, good girl. Good girl.
It's just the tone. Get that.
It's that tone and that pitch and that phrase. And I only say that when we're doing our clicker training. So it's that good girl marks the behavior that I wanted, and then she gets the reward. So I've taught her to sit. I've taught her to jump up, jump down. I've taught her to spin. We're still working on spin. She's not our strongest. But I've taught her to do fist bumps and high five. So she's multi-talented and
That
very
is
cute.
cool. That is so cool. I mean, I've seen the fist bumps. I mean, I never really thought that it was one of those, oh, it'll be possible, but that'd be cool. See,
I know.
See, and people think that cats, you can't do anything with a cat. See, proof right there. You really can't.
Exactly.
Now, you had mentioned on slow feeders. I wanted to go back to that really quick.
Okay.
I was talking to Dr. Liz Bales, and she has they're little mice things that she puts food in and hides them around the house. And I wanted to throw that in there as an ad. Is that too stimulates the mind and helps with that type of aggressions or just the need to hunt? I mean, you take that away from them.
Yeah, so cats hunt up to, like cats in the wild who are kind of on their own, hunt between 10 and 20 times a day. And that involves going around looking for prey. And then once they find prey, going through the prey sequence, which is staring, stalking and chasing, pouncing and grabbing, and then performing a kill bite. So they're getting a lot of mental and physical stimulation. And when we just put all of their food in a bowl, it takes away all of that. So if a cat spends 30% of its time hunting, and then we remove all that, that's a big hole to fill. So what she's done, and I can't remember the name of her little mice, but she's basically combined like a food puzzle with hunting. Mm-hmm. And so you put, kibble in these little mice and then hide them throughout your house. And then your cat has to spend time finding the mouse and then rolling the mouse around so that the food comes out, which is so much better than putting just your food in a bowl in front of your cat's face.
And oddly enough, and I'm trying to go back to figure out all right, here I've almost made it. It was Doc and Phoebe's is her company. Yeah. And I'm just trying to remember exactly the name, and I can't recall. I think it's the Hunting Feeder or something like that. It was something to that effect. I mean, she's everywhere. I mean, it's been a while since we talked, but
it's the indoor hunting feeder.
Okay, so I did have that. All right, at least my brain's working a little bit there. I'm like hunting. It was like trying to rewind it back in my head. But yeah, I mean, it's always something that if you don't stimulate the cat's mind, I mean, that's a problem.
It's one of those situations where, you bring a cat indoors and don't give it toys or the opportunity to hunt, and you've stripped away the environmental stimulation that the cat gets outside, stripped away the prey experience, the hunting. And I think people just expect their cats to sit on the couch all day, snuggle with them, and then eat out of the food bowl and use the litter box.
Yes.
And it is amazing to me that given that cats are, and I'll repeat again, tiny, adorable, semi-wild, carnivorous, predatory beasts, I'm amazed that they don't cause more damage in our homes, given, what 100% indoor cats don't have relative to what they evolved with. So, it is that's I'll just lay that there.
Well, I as I said, I mean, I have a few cats, and they're not destructive. Oddly enough, they're not destructive. And I don't know if we just keep them well stimulated, if they have each other to kind of play off of. I really have no idea. But it's funny because the behaviors that I read about, I'm like, well, I mean, besides the peeing on my side of the bed whenever there's a large foster that comes in, other than that, I really never see that. But I can imagine this is something that's a problem for people. I mean, a massive problem. I mean, you can look online and people are like, help, I need help.
I know. And, I think people just don't realize what cats need. And I have clients who've never had cats. I've had clients who have had cats their entire lives. And each cat, like we were saying at the beginning, is different. Mm-hmm. Yes, as a species, cats require some things. They require things. But individually, cats have different tolerances to stress. Cats have different tolerances to disturbance. There are more easygoing cats. There are more snuggly cats. There are more high-strung cats. There are more fearful cats. So each cat, as an individual, you have to look and see how the broad-scale needs of that cat are being met. And then once you take a look at that, you work out the areas in which there may be deficiencies. And enrichment opportunities are one of those things that I often see. So like playtime with your cat, really recreating the hunt is something that I talk with my clients about 100% of the time. And I always recommend that their cats, unless their cat is like 16, and, has a hard time getting around. And even then, they still need physical and mental stimulation, don't get me wrong. But I always recommend at least 2 play sessions each day. And that's using a long wand toy that can resemble a prey item. So it has like a mouse on the end, or feathers for a bird, or a bug lure, or maybe a little snake, because those are the main prey items for cats. It's going to tap into their predatory urges. And then you play with your cat so that it goes through the entire prey sequence. Again, staring, stalking and chasing, pouncing and grabbing, performing a kill bite. And then each of those play sessions should last 15 to 20 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. And it can be challenging, but it should also be fun. A lot of times cats, after the first minute or two, will be like, I'm bored. They lie. They are fakey McFakertons. What they've done is just go back to the first step of the prey sequence, which is staring, because they were so excited at first when the toy came out. They're like, I'm going to get it. And then they're like, oh, I'm not getting it. I need to stop and stare and figure out what's going on and how am I going to get this thing. So a lot of people misinterpret that for boredom and I'm done playing. And I understand that the staring phase is not so exciting for humans. So you have to just keep at it. You can switch the toy, or you can give the cat a 30-second break and then come back to it. But I always recommend at least 10 minutes twice a day with a wand toy. And the one I recommend is called the Bird, VABIRD, because you can interchange the lures on it. It's really great. If you change things up frequently, then your cat doesn't get bored. I've read something recently which says that cats even get bored within a play session, so changing the lure in the middle of a play session can be good. But that takes care of play sessions will change your cat's life. It helps them build confidence. It helps reduce stress through all that physical activity. It lets them be the predators that they actually are. It wears them out so they don't have all that energy that they need to act on but can't. It is huge for cats. So play sessions, that's like the number one thing I recommend for cats.
Or if you're like my calico, which is named Callie, really original, I know. Her favorite play session is I sit on the couch, she sits on my lap, and I pet her. And that's, I kid you not, I could be there, which I'm never there for more than an hour, but if I'm there an hour, she's there an hour. And it's like prying her off. She's like a tattoo when you sit down. I don't want you to do anything. Just let me sit on your lap. Pet me occasionally if you want, but I'm here. And it's so there are cats that are really just the snuggle bugs, and then the other ones that just really love to be played with.
Yeah, but I recommend playing with the snuggle bugs as well, because as they get older, their tolerance level for stress decreases.
Mm-hmm.
So even though things are fine right now, everything's good in snuggle bug world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as she gets older, her tolerance for stress is going to decrease. Play will help offset that. And it's just something fun and novel, and, you know, it breaks up their days. They don't have to be great predators. You know, they might not be even good. I've cats that have no idea what they're doing. But they learn, and it's really good. It builds their confidence to learn.
Well, Callie's 8. She was born on my lap, literally born on my lap. And what's funny is, being out where we live, every so often, especially right around this time when it gets a little cold, you may have some mice that will come up from the creek, and they don't stand a chance. They stand zero chance whatsoever. I haven't seen a mouse. I don't even know how long it's been. It's been for that long. And then occasionally you have your bugs come in, and if I see a bug, like little moth or whatever, fly in, and it's been there for more than 2 minutes, I'm like, you guys aren't doing your job. You had one job. And they do look at you, and they go, oh, okay. And it's just so funny with cats. That's the difference between a cat and a dog that I love, is just how bizarre and intricate they are. And yet it's, like you've said, and we've said it so many times, not so much in words, they're basic. But to articulate it, it takes forever to come up with the conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah. Cat logic. It's hard to
cat
figure
logic.
out.
Well, unfortunately, we are running long on this one, but you got to come back. We got to talk more. I definitely want to hear more stories. I want to have more cat conversations, because I enjoy this. As you can tell, I'm engaged. I love it. I love cats, and I love what you're doing, and I love being able to hear your experiences and your stories.
Thank you. I have a ton of cat stories, you might imagine.
And you know what? You'll be kind of like Jay and Adrian, or even Dr. Bales, or whomever, who come on here and just go and tell their little stories. And I just sit here going, I'm the first listener, and I get to interact, and I love every minute of it. It is definitely fun. I do want to mention, though, 2 things. One, I have to, even though I'm a little late, I have to give you congratulations on the Pet Industry Woman of the Year for 2017.
Oh, thank you.
Advocate Award.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm a little late. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Better late than never, I read somewhere. And then, really quick, I just want to kind of let everybody know you do have the introductory consultation, as you talked about, cat behavior consultations, cat well-being consultations, and one thing that I think you said once or twice, you like to teach. So you have online classes, which I'm sure benefit people all the time. You want to let everybody know how they can actually get in touch with you or find out more?
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about what I do or get in touch with me, just cruise on over to my website. It's www.felinebehaviorsolutions.com. And you can look through there. There's a ton of information. There's articles. As you mentioned, Chris, I have a feline communication class that you can purchase. It's a webinar, and it's not about mind melding with your cat. It's about how cats communicate. So body language, vocalizations, olfactory cues. It's a great little class. And but I do offer the consultation services starting at only $50. So that's a really good way to figure out if there's a quicker answer to your issue, or maybe you need to dive into something a little bit more in depth. So anyway, it's www.felinebehaviorsolutions.com, and you can reach me directly at my email address. It's Marci, M-A-R-C-I, at felinebehaviorsolutions.com.
Perfect. And again, we'll be talking, and you'll be back, and you'll tell us more stories, and we'll have more interactions. And it's always been, a big thing to talk about cats, and I love being able to talk to you about it. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation, and it's been really fun chatting with you.
And as I said, I don't know how to put this into perspective of what I'm doing because, well, how can I? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Well, I'm Chris Green. Have a fantastic week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, gotta go in my bedtime.